I'm Natalia Bonner. Welcome back. You guessed it, I am still obsessed with my sway machine quilting rulers. Seriously, the possibilities just keep flowing out of my head, so I'm just going to keep quilting with these fun machine quilting rulers. So today I am quilting on my own quilt. It's actually my Wayfinder quilt, and I'm having so much fun with this quilt. Because it's mine, I really got to just play around with my machine quilting, and I love it. I did a double bat on this quilt so that it'll have a lot of texture. I am sharing my full process from start to finish of custom machine quilting this amazing quilt in the Peaceland Quilt Academy. So make sure you do subscribe to the Peaceland Quilt Academy. It is an awesome resource full of machine quilting inspiration. But today we're going to be quilting some fun concentric circles. We are going to be using the Sway 3, also the Sway 4, and the Sway 5 machine quilting rulers to quilt out these awesome circles. I'll do all of my quilting here on my Gamel 22-inch machine. I am stitching in the stitch regulated mode, and I do have my stitch length set at 13 stitches per inch. You can enroll in the Peaceland Quilt Academy, plus purchase the Sway machine quilting rulers over on our website, peacelandquilt.com. Let's mark and quilt some circles using the Sway machine quilting rulers. Now, you really can mark and quilt this design out with very minimalistic marking. I could start out by using the blue Mark Be Gone marker and the straight side of my Sway machine quilting ruler and simply mark an X here through the center of my block. Now, I could use my machine quilting ruler, the Sway 3, lay it on top of that X that I've marked, and begin quilting. Now, just because I want to show you how you can use the Sway machine quilting rulers to actually plan and mark out your design ahead of time, we're going to look at the whole ruler. Let's start today with the Sway 3 machine quilting ruler. So here is the Sway 3, and this is the circular end of the ruler. On this ruler, you can see that there are a few markings, and today we're going to stick with just the basic markings. Through the end of the ruler, you can see there is a T and also an X. That indicates the center of this 3-inch circle. Now, when I say a 3-inch circle, or when we're working with the Sway 4 or Sway 5 machine quilting rulers, this circular end is designed for quilting. So if you measure across, it is not a true 3 inches. Now, why is that? I have designed all of the Sway machine quilting rulers so that when you're machine quilting using a ruler foot, from your needle here to the outside of your ruler foot, there is a 1/4 inch space. So this Sway machine quilting ruler, all of the Sway machine quilting rulers, take that into consideration. This circle end here is designed for quilting a perfect 3-inch curve. Now moving to the concave side of the ruler, this side is also designed taking into consideration that 1/4 inch spacing and designed to quilt a concave side of a 3-inch circle. Now there are a few markings on this center section as well. So here is the concave section. You can see there's this heavy dashed line that indicates the outside, a 1/4 inch outside of that circle. Now here there's also a heavy dashed line through the center. This line indicates the center of this 3-inch circle that would go right there. There's also a line right here that indicates that, and also one right here, this diagonal line. So if I were going to quilt a 3-inch circle based off of, let's say, this line right here, I can line up that marking and know that this is going to be the concave side of that 3-inch circle quilted right along there. Now let's look at this hook end. this end is a little bit larger curve. It's actually a true 3-inch curve. And all of the Sway machine quilting rulers are designed this way. So here's the Sway 4 machine quilting ruler, and you can see it's the same. The circular end for quilting the concave side with those marked lines on the ruler for quilting that concave side. And again, focusing today here, starting with marking with that hook end. And again, the Sway 5, it's a little bit bigger ruler because it's designed for marking and quilting with the circular side, also the concave side, and then the hook end for marking. And another thing to point out with the hook end on all of them, there's the curve on the outside, but then you can see as you move down the ruler, there's the opposite side of that circle. And the same back here to the Sway 3. So there's that curved side, and then that circle continues. So on the hook end, here are some of the markings that you'll need to use today. There is a T right here marked through the hook end of each of the Sway machine quilting rulers. We're going to be lining up this T or this X on the ruler on top of this X that I've marked on my block. And we'll do that with all of the Sway machine quilting rulers. So let's try it out. Let's lay the Sway 3 machine quilting ruler, the hook end. I'm laying this X that's marked on the ruler on top of the X that I've marked on my quilt. Now I'll use the blue Mark Be Gone marker and don't wiggle your ruler, mark along the outside of that curve. Now I can flip the ruler. Once I've flipped the ruler, I'm still going to use those same marked lines. Lay those right on top of that X and continue marking that circle. Now I'll flip my ruler again this way. Again, I'm lining up those marked lines on my ruler and continuing my marking. And then to finish off that circle, I can even go over here and complete. So there we have marked a 3-inch circle. Next, because I want to see this full design before I begin my machine quilting, let's repeat that process using the Sway 4. So again, using the hook end of that Sway 4 machine quilting ruler, we're lining up those same markings, then marking that curve, flip the ruler. Now again, I'm lining up these markings on the ruler, right on top of the markings on my block, and continuing my markings. And repeating that same process, flipping the ruler, and let's repeat that one more time, now using the hook end of the Sway 5 machine quilting ruler. Something I want to point out on this ruler, here are those lines. Now, the actual center is not there, so that's okay. I'm still going to line up those same lines, this line through the hook end, right on top of the X through the center. That's where my center is still for this circle. Now I'll lay my ruler on top of there and mark that curved line. And then I can flip my ruler and repeat that process. Now you'll see by lining this up, get it in the right position, I'm not actually going to mark the whole circle. I'm just going to be marking a few of the lines. Technically I could, well, you know what, let's just go through and mark it all out. See, I change my mind often. Flip that ruler back and forth, lining up, again, those marked lines on the ruler every single time. And once again, lining those marked lines on the ruler up on top of the marked lines on the quilt. So there you have the 3 circles that I've marked, again using the hook end of the Sway 5, the hook end of the Sway 4, and the hook end of the sway 3. Now what I want you to see is how I'm going to lay my machine quilting ruler. This is the sway 3, and you can see that there's that spacing for my quilting, taking into account that ruler foot. Also the same with the sway 4. I'm going to lay that right on top. Now here's a fun little trick. When you quilt these, if I quilt my 3 first, you can now see that this dashed line is going to line up right on top of my previous stitch line. And the same with working with the sway 5. Lining it up on those same markings, and now that dashed line is going to line up right on top of the quilting from the sway 4. How cool is that? Okay, here's one more fun thing. So once I quilt these circles, or as I'm quilting, I can even line up the markings on the rulers. Let's see. I could line up the sway 4 dashed line marking on top of that 5-inch circle to quilt using that concave side. And the same thing, so if I start on the outside and work in, then I can use it the sway concave side of the ruler that way. Let's start on the outside and quilt the 5-inch circle first. Let's start with that 5-inch circle. So I'm lining the markings on the sway 5 machine quilting ruler. This is the circular end. I'm lining that T or X up across that blue marked line on the center of the block. I'll begin quilting. Using gentle pressure, I'm going to quilt about halfway around. When I stop, I want to make sure that my needle is in the down position. From there, I'll readjust the machine quilting ruler so that, again, those marked lines on the ruler are right on top of the marked lines that I had marked on my quilt. Now, going back to that gentle pressure and gliding my foot. And there we have it, a perfect 5-inch circle using, again, the hook end here on the ruler for the marking and the circular end here for quilting. Now we're going to start working inside and switch to the sway 4 machine quilting ruler. I'm going to travel along my ditch to that next marked line. This is a little hack of mine. I like to travel along the ditch wherever I can. I like to hold my machine quilting ruler in a position that feels most comfortable to me. Now that I've already quilted this outside 5-inch circle, I am going to use the markings on the sway 4 machine quilting ruler. This heavy dashed line indicates this exact same 5-inch circle, even though it's used for quilting the concave side of the 4-inch circle. Using gentle pressure, I am going to line my sway 4 machine quilting ruler so that this dashed line is right on top of my stitching. So once I've stitched about 1/4 of a way around, now I'm going to reposition, again ensuring that my needle is in the down position. Then I'll adjust my ruler first so I can quilt as far around that circle as I can without stopping, but then also so it's in a nice comfortable position. Using gentle pressure again, I'll engage my machine and glide around that circle. Now I've stitched down here to a point that's close to my body, a more comfortable position. I'm going to readjust the sway 4 machine quilting ruler again so that this heavy dashed line is right on top of my previous stitch line. I'll apply gentle pressure and complete my stitching. How cool is that? Now I have a perfect 4-inch circle. Let's travel in along that ditch again and complete now the 3-inch circle. Again, like I did on the previous circle, I'm going to use that Sway 3 machine quilting ruler, line this heavy dashed line on the ruler on top of my previous stitching, and now I'll stitch along that side of my circle. From there, now I'll reposition, making sure that my needle is in the down position as I'm repositioning my ruler so that the X that's marked through the circle end of the Sway 3 is right on top of that X that I have marked. I'll quilt around that circle as far as I can. Make sure that my needle is in the down position as I realign my machine quilting ruler. And then I'll complete my stitching. So there you have it, 3 perfect circles quilted and marked using the Sway 3, 4, and 5 machine quilting rulers.
Why was Cinderella so bad at soccer? Because she kept running from the ball.